focus of my assignment is adaptive teaching for pupils with SEND. Adaptive teaching is an important element of high-quality teaching. Teachers can modify the content of the teaching and the way in which it is presented to learners. The classroom environment can be adapted to ensure that it includes all learners, and tasks and outcomes can be modified in accordance with teacher knowledge of individual pupils. NASEN 2020. Within the UK, the SEND Code of Practice 2015 defines a child with SEND as someone who has a significantly greater difficulty in learning than the majority of others of the same age, has a disability which prevents or hinders him or her from making use of facilities of a kind generally provided for others of the same age in mainstream schools or mainstream post-16 institutions. Under the Code of Practice, there are 4 areas of SEND defined. These are communication and interaction, cognition and learning, social emotional mental health or SEMH, sensory and or physical needs. For this assignment, I will be looking at how adaptive teaching can benefit all students, specifically students who have ADHD or inattentive, hyperactive and impulsive behaviours and traits. This falls under SEMH under the Code of Practice. Within the UK, there is much debate about how SEND should be conceptualised, and there are 2 main models that are up for debate: the medical or deficit model or the social model. The medical model views disability as a medical condition or as something to be fixed or cured. The emphasis is placed on the disabled person, diagnosing, treating, and in some cases rehabilitating disabled people. It is a model that has contributed to advancements in healthcare but has been criticised for reducing a person down to a condition diagnosis or a label. In contrast, the social model sees disability as a result of societal barriers rather than placing the blame on the disabled person themselves. The model focuses on the importance of dismantling barriers for disabled people, whether they be physical, attitudinal, or societal. The model emphasises equal opportunities, accessibility, and equity. The integrated model, however, is an approach that moulds both aspects of the medical and social model. It promotes a holistic system of support that prioritises inclusion, collaboration, and equity. It places the young person with SEND at the heart of the support and focuses on how best to support the young person. SEN and disability are not educationally or legally interchangeable. The 2015 Code of Practice definition of SEND for some is therefore contentious. This is due to its assumption of what classifies a normal learner. It seems to presume that those who do not fit the parameters of such a definition and who struggle are therefore deficit and deficient. While SEND in schools is a category of students who have an additional need, it must be said that those needs are as diverse and individual as the students themselves. Students with SEND are not simply the label or diagnosis they receive. They have diverse individual characteristics and are not a homogeneous group. Therefore, the integrated model of disability, where pupils are supported as individuals, is one that has shaped my teaching practice thus far. By building relationships with my students, I have better come to understand how to support them. Good teaching for children with SEND is good teaching for all. Rachel Rostier, the EEF. Adaptive teaching for all students benefits everyone in the classroom. As the CCF Core Content Framework states, by adapting my teaching to meet all needs and planning for this is far better than simply creating isolated or differentiated traits that single out a few students, as can be seen in evidence in 5.3 and 5.4 of the Core Content Framework. Teachers make subject-specific adaptations to activities for pupils with SEND where appropriate instead of excessive adaptations to the curriculum or lowering expectations. Ofsted 2023 Research Review Series Art and Design. This is something that in the Ofsted research review of art and design as a subject was also recommended. Rather than altering or limiting the curriculum, I used adaptive strategies in my case study to best meet the needs of the pupils in my class. For my case study, my focus was on 2 students in the same class with similar needs, both with EHCP plans. Student A is a student with ADHD who struggles with attention, retention, and focus in the classroom. If tasks or demonstrations are long or drawn out, they struggle to follow instruction and later independently complete any tasks, whether they be creative or otherwise. When speaking with the SENCO, they offered the following advice: that there should be limited copying from the board, there should be use of pictures to support text, there should be concise and clear instructions, and that positive praise should be used throughout. Student B. Student B has similar needs to Student A and also struggles with staying motivated and can become easily distracted by peers when they do not understand a task. Again, when speaking with the SENCO, it was advised that I use step-by-step instructions, the use of pictures to support text, concise and clear instructions, and positive praise. Within my classroom, a TA who works with the class across multiple subjects and interventions is normally present. When working collaboratively with the TA on how best to support both student A and B, as well as the whole class, the following key strategies were highlighted. The EHCP plan students benefit from very clear steps to complete and having something visual to refer to. A visual checklist on the whiteboard breaking down the tasks is a useful tool to the whole class to use. Ofsted, in their research review, offered advice in the art and design review highlighting how it is important to be aware of cognitive load theory when working with students with additional needs. They stated that students struggle to retain knowledge and develop schema when work is too much and their brains become overloaded. They therefore recommended, much like the school SENCO and the TA, that important aspects of work when teaching be broken down and chunked. The whole school SEN teacher handbook states an inclusive art and design lesson will be thoughtfully planned to ensure that learning is appropriately chunked with additional scaffolding or challenge for all. Text, visual aids and instructions won't be onerous, but direct and succinct. Every effort will be made to ensure each learner has the appropriate needs to succeed in the art and design classroom. The Education Endowment Foundation states the evidence tells us that teachers should prioritise familiar but powerful strategies like scaffolding and explicit instruction to support their pupils with SEND. This means understanding the needs of individual pupils and weaving specific approaches into everyday high-quality classroom teaching, being inclusive by design, not as an afterthought. In review of this, Ofsted's and the school's SENCO and TA's advice, I decided to implement the following adaptive techniques into my teaching, which were both scaffolding and explicit instruction. The EEF defines scaffolding as a metaphor for temporary support that is removed when it is no longer required. Initially, enough support is offered so a task can be completed independently. This support can be written, verbal, or visual. This support is then gradually removed over time or altered depending on the teacher's assessment of student progress. Whereas explicit instruction is defined as a range of teacher-led approaches whereby a teacher directly and clearly explains and demonstrates how to perform a task or slide. Over a series of lessons, I taught my Year 9 students 1 and 2 point perspective drawing. Through step-by-step board instructions and task lists, visual printouts, chunk demonstrations and verbal scaffolding, I implemented the adaptive teaching techniques of explicit instruction and scaffolding. These adaptive teaching strategies align with Potimer and Hopashka's broader conceptualization of scaffolding, which advocates for designing supports across students' varying zones of proximal development and gradually fading them out. Their call for multiple resources and interaction matches my use of visual and verbal scaffolds. Similarly, Dobler and Fillion emphasise the effectiveness of explicit instruction involving clear modelling and feedback, which I use to support students' grasp of complex spatial concepts. Research by Dupoul and Farrell highlights clear chunked instructions, positive reinforcement, and hands-on learning as beneficial strategies for students with ADHD. I applied these principles by breaking tasks into manageable steps and fostering a supportive environment. Wearmouth stresses understanding individual students' needs and fostering an environment where mistakes and learning opportunities take place. My approach in the classroom reflects this by encouraging gradual independence through faded scaffolding. I found, however, that strategies such as clearly writing out step-by-step instructions on the board had a profound impact on students. Chunking my demonstrations and giving clear instructions helped, but this paired with the written instructions on the board while students independently worked increased student confidence. Students made further progress through their understanding of 1 and 2 point perspective through the use of a visual resource. I created a step-by-step visual printout of the basic foundations of perspective drawing. As lessons progressed, the printouts became simpler and students were able to continue creating their drawings with shorter, less detailed demonstrations. Through questioning students, I asserted and ascertained when to slowly fade out the scaffolding resources, when to simplify instructions. The impact this has had is that students were more independent, completing tasks and helping each other. Over time, their confidence grew, and as they became more independent in creating more diverse and developed drawings, the use of short, clear instructions paired with chunk demonstrations, I think, has highlighted the effective use of questioning, scaffolding, and implicit instruction, and has especially made me better understand how to support students through misconceptions and develop their understanding of the subject overall. Overall, while the literature provides strong theoretical and practical backing for adaptive teaching, it often lacks specific scalable examples for the creative subjects like art and design. However, I found through reading the research and resources that the scaffolding and explicit instruction mode of information had a profound impact on students when I did manage to use it in such a way that helped them within the art classroom. So therefore, overall, I think the strategies that I did use worked incredibly well. And while the literature is not fully founded in art and design, and I've struggled to find relevant literature overall, I found that the strategies can easily be used across the curricula quite well within the subject itself.